There are going to be many times where you don't have the opportunity to have your students stand up. So if you're in an office situation or you're asked to present in any kind of a corporate environment, normally, unless you know the people, the expectation is that it's going to be done seated in chairs. And normally that's what how the room is going to be set up. So here are 3 exercises, the Bodywork exercises that you can do in an office situation, which they're a little, one of them is a little bit wider than the chair. So if someone is going to set up the room for you, normally that's what happens. Make sure that there's a space of about a half a chair in between all of the chairs. What I would ask is that if possible, people take their shoes off. It really does make a difference to the feeling of being grounded, especially with women who are wearing heels. But even guys who are wearing shoes, it does make a difference to the feeling of groundedness that we can get when the shoes are off. Excuse me. So, first one, very much like our standing side stretch. Ask people to move forwards on their chair so that their feet can take quite a little bit of responsibility for holding them upright here. So making sure that they're not sitting back and too comfortable. Remember, we're trying to get those diaphragms stacked. So taking a few moments to let them get into a nice upright position. If you wanted, you could ask them to tilt their pelvis backwards and forwards until they find 2 sit bones. It might work, it might not. We take the right hand behind the head, push the head into the hand and the hand into the head. What I'm doing here is I am cupping my hand around the lowest part of my skull, and I'm kind of tractioning just a little bit. So my this ridge, your occipital ridge at the back of your head, I'm just taking my curve of my hand around that and ever so slightly lifting my head away from my neck. And then I do my side bend. Remember, I want tension here. It is the tension that does 2 things. It dehydrates the tissue so that when we come out of this, the tissue rehydrates. When the architecture and the environment get changed a little bit, the sensitivity kind of lights up, so people begin to understand where their lungs are or where their diaphragm is or where their ribs are. So we're lifting up, trying to keep the tension out of the neck and shoulders. If you want, you can take your opposite hand to your ribs so that when you breathe into the rib cage, your fingers can mirror what your ribs are supposed to do. So they're supposed to expand on inhalation and relax on exhalation. Staying here for a few breaths. If you want to increase the tension, you can reach the other hand down towards the floor. Try this. Reach the other hand down towards the floor. Now put your hand on the chair and let yourself rest on it. You'll feel that the tension gets diminished in that side. So you can ask them to that. It really just depends on whether they have any issues in their neck, their shoulders, their low back, etc. If they need to, they can keep the other hand onto their same side leg, and they can kind of push that hand into that leg to get them nice and tall, and keep reaching the elbow up to the ceiling. We stay here for a good minute, and then release. Always let them assess how that side feels in comparison with the other side. Let's stay on the same side so that you can also feel what it feels like on one side in comparison to the other. So this is just an add-on to that last exercise. I would still keep them as 2 separate exercises though. Let them learn that bit of it first and then move on to this bit of it. So once again, I'm taking my hand behind my head. I am tractioning and I'm adding a little side bend. Now from here, I'll turn sideways on so that you can see me. From here, I want to move back and away from the leg where my hand is. So I've got my right side in a little side bend, and then I'm moving to the back corner of the room on my right side. So it's not straight back, it's into that hip almost. From here, I keep the tension going through the arm as I reach that arm towards my opposite knee. And from here, I take a hold of that wrist and I gently pull it away as I push back into this bit of the ribs, which is the back and the sides of the ribs, a very difficult part of the rib cage to understand and to get to. So I have that, and then I just do a gentle pull and a push. And I stay here. My nose is pointing to the outside of my left foot. My ribs are pulling back. If this is too much, well, then you let them release the wrist and just keep the hand on top of the other one. And they are in charge of all of the tension that happens. We stay here for about a minute, trying to send our breath into the back right side of the ribs. Release and note that side. Just a very short note on that. If they've been at their computers all day and they're doing this and this, they might have so much tension in their neck and shoulders that this becomes a little bit too uncomfortable. Really simple way to bring fluid into that area is simple shoulder rolls forwards and backwards. So if you do those first, and actually they're a really nice way of just getting people used to moving while sitting in their chairs, well then it makes it a little bit less tension forming around the neck and shoulders for them. We're going to do all of that on the other side. I'm going to link one to the other on this side. Hands are on my thighs. I take my left hand behind my head and I push my head into my hand and my hand into my head. I reach my elbow up to the ceiling first. I lengthen first, and only after I lengthen do I come into that little side bend, trying not to allow the tension to build up in my neck, but most definitely feeling it in my ribs. If you want, you can take your hand onto those ribs so that when you breathe in, your fingers expand just like your ribs, and when you breathe out, they contract. If you wish to increase the tension, the other hand reaches down to the floor, or you can keep that hand on the leg, push the leg into the hand and the hand into the leg. Breathe. Remind them about the tension to drop the left hip down into the chair and the left arm up to the ceiling. We're going to release. Just take a moment or two to note the difference, to note the fluid flow, to allow the fresher fluid to come back into that area. Same again. This time, I move myself back and over into the back side of my ribs, as if I'm sitting into the back left side of my ribs, and then I reach the hand across to the outside of the opposite knee. I can stay here, or I can use my right hand to gently pull my left wrist away. Breathing into the back, left side of my ribs, releasing the head can look down at the ground, sending the breath in there. And then release and note.